Good morning. Or is it afternoon?
All depends on what side of that time zone line you're on.
Yeah,
Happy Thursday to you, Mike.
I'm 12:02 here. Ah, let's see.
What's up?
Hey there, Jory. Yeah, having audio challenges.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm gonna go get some hot water from the heater. I'll be right back.
Didn't have much on the agenda today, but we'll see if any of this generates some topics.
Yeah, Trevor's stuff, I guess.
Which was Trevor's.
He's working. 563 in the distribution spec.
Okay.
First
The
tag scheme.
first tag. Yeah. That's first up on my list. And that one might be a bit thorny to pull apart.
Trevor was very active at the beginning of the specification definitions.
Yeah, and he's going through looking at this stuff in details that I haven't looked at before and calling out some very good points. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up here and say, there are a lot of edge cases in here we haven't considered of people that can potentially do some really weird things.
Yeah, yeah. Trevor's a very detail-oriented kind of guy.
Yeah, because I was just focused on limiting to the 64 character of the hash, thinking that's all you gotta do. We solved it all. And then I was like, actually, the algorithm can be all kinds of stuff. That's when I had that old shucks moment. I didn't say shucks though. So we're almost at 5 after here. Not sure if if we're waiting on anybody else or if folks have other stuff you want to throw on the agenda, but we can start off on chatting about that reverse tag schema. Unless, Jory, you have anything we want to knock out early on.
No, just some coordination still continuing around the container plumbing days. We are updating the website. We sort of kicking off the plan with the events group. I will add Mike, Brandon, some of the TOB folks who have been engaged in program committee to a email alias soon. So be on the lookout for that. And then the other thing was that tomorrow's last day to nominate yourself as chair. If we have Sam as so far the only nominee as far as I know, and so maybe we won't have an election, but nominate yourself and maybe we will.
A lot of times it's Sam puts his hand up. We're all like, great, you did a great job last time. You didn't have any meetings. We like that. And we go for another year that way.
Yep. Yeah, Phil did that for quite a while there.
It it is the lowest pressure meeting chair, TOB board chair role I've ever seen. Anywhere else you tend to have to actually do something, but here not so much. But yeah, that is on the agenda item. So for any TOB members, feel free to go over there and do that. And if someone does try to hold an election, I'll throw my name in there. But otherwise, I like low maintenance. All right. Yeah, so the reverse tag schema stuff. When this got brought up this past week, as we were just saying here a minute ago, the digest algorithm is something that can be a lot more complicated than what you would necessarily have inside of just a tag. It can be arbitrary length, and it can have characters that we can't legitimately put inside of a tag, which means our little digest algorithm dash hash notation that we had for the refers fallback tag potentially can exceed the length limit of a tag and have invalid characters. So wanted to raise this up here to see what folks are thinking of to make this something a little bit easier. I think the initial pass that was being done on this one in the PR was just do a straight 128 character limit on the whole thing. That concerns me slightly. One, it gives people an impression that you'll be able to take an entire 128 bit or 128 character hash. And you can't do that because you have that prefix of the algorithm dash string in there. So because of that, you're always going to truncate something off of the 512. And I don't know if that's clear to everybody that's trying to do this, that was what was happening there. But then if you have different algorithms that have arbitrary length algorithm names, you could have a 0 character hash. The entire tag string could be taken up by just the algorithm. And so I wanted to get people's thoughts on what you think the better option is to mitigate some of those concerns. One thought is that we limit it to just the registered algorithms. And then we do a good job of registering algorithms with a good string that's not going to blow out the whole tag syntax. Another thought is to actually limit the digest algorithms the way we haven't limited them before, but hopefully nobody's actually using it that way. Or we just do 120 character chop on the string. It means that people that have existing clients are going to have to rewrite their clients to the new tag string syntax. I'm not thrilled about that either.
No, breaking change.
It would be a breaking change. That's why I wasn't really thrilled about it, but I don't think it's going to be a huge breaking change because I don't think many people are using SHA-512 right now, but it would be a incompatible change between two versions. Y'all are quiet. I'm hoping this means you haven't thought about this problem before, that you have no good answers similar to me.
Yeah, no good answers. Reading it over again.
Scrolling down through the whole list, yeah.
I definitely don't like the must truncate language. I know
So you do have to truncate because otherwise it's an invalid tag. Because the tag itself has a 128 character length limit inside a distribution spec. But
is
the
that
component,
is that also a must language?
we can pull that up, but it is in the distribution spec that the tag follows this character representation.
I remember something about the total
Yeah,
length.
it's a must.
All right.
And that text, let me get a permalink on this one since these notes are preserved. I'll share this with the group. So reference tag must be at most 128 characters in length and must match the following expression. And so our expression allows A to Z, upper and lower, 0 to 9, underscore. We do have a dot, we do have a dash, but then the tag, that's for the tag, but then the algorithm component also includes a plus. And the encoding includes an equals. So there are some extra characters in there that we weren't accounting for. and the fact that they don't have any length limit on the digest algorithm.
Yeah, okay, now I see it. The 255 was what I was remembering, but okay.
Yeah, you're thinking of the whole repository name with the registry host name, one that we had before.
Right.
Yeah, this is just on the tag, and our refers fallback tag, since it includes a digest algorithm and that doesn't have any limits in it. You can have 128 plus character digest algorithm. It could be SHA-10,082 with a whole bunch of A's.
The reason for creating the tag schema was registries backward compatibility for not when they don't support referers, right? So why do we want to keep expanding on this portion of the spec? So what's the use case for this?
So you're going back to my comment on, was it it's the other linked issue here.
The discussion, yeah, I'm looking at that, and I think the point is this is a stopgap implementation. Is kind of how we went with it.
Yeah, that was my big point in this, which was if you have a registry that doesn't implement refers, they're probably not going to implement a bunch of other digest algorithms.
Yeah,
Probably.
that's true.
Because we don't have full support for other algorithms in there today. We've got partial, but it's not complete. So I wasn't trying to spend too much time on that, but it is a gap in there that got raised. And so that's why I wanted to bring it over here.
Noting that in a prior conversation with John Johnson on this must 128, it was a should at a bare minimum in the conversation. It's just a minor note there.
Where are you noting?
I'm going to the original PR on the must. Let me link it here. Just thinking out of the box here, that maybe that we can revisit the must, or at least try to drill into what they were thinking at the time.
I would imagine if we took the must out of there today, that we would break somebody.
Well, I think if the language was should and you did break somebody, then they could put a fix in. Or with the must, you're sort of restricting. I just throwing that out. Not leaning in any direction.
Yeah. One person's restriction is another person's load bearing must.
Yeah.
Yeah, the path I want to go down is honestly to limit the digest algorithm more than anything. I feel like that's the side where there's the least amount of people doing crazy stuff out there in the wild today. And so if we made that a little bit more limited, that would probably be least likely to break something.
Okay. So then would it be fair then to put an asterisk note that may be revisited in the future with the extended algorithms? Exotic algorithms.
Oh, right now today, there is only 2 registered algorithms. It's just the SHA-256 and the 512. We haven't
Right.
registered any other algorithm out there. but there can be unlimited numbers of unregistered algorithms.
Yeah, I think he was bringing this forward because there were actually going to be a lot more algorithms coming forward around quantum.
Well, there are people talking about like Blake 3. Every time I say that, Rom has to take a drink. But I don't think Blake 3 is going to be an example of somebody doing this wrong over here either. We would keep that to a relatively reasonable name. So my thinking is nobody is using an unregistered algorithm today that we know of that would do any kind of crazy breaking change here. So would it make sense to just throw in there and say digest algorithms have a length limit of 32 characters? We put that in the image spec, and that pretty much solves this problem from that side.
Right.
So
I like it with the asterisk that we're not, against extending it. It's just it doesn't make sense at this point, right?
well, if you allow somebody to make a longer digest algorithm in the future, you have to make a consideration that you might break the fallback in some way. And so
Right.
would you say, hey, you need to truncate the digest algorithm to this length inside of the fallback tag? That would be another option.
Right. I mean, you could make the equivalent argument that in the future with the more exotic algorithm, you could eliminate the fallback.
So the fallback and the digest algorithm are always going to be independent of each other because a registry can potentially not implement refers, but decide to implement who knows what algorithm out there.
Right.
All right.
This
We've
is
noodled
only
on this.
I didn't realize this was only for refers. I thought it was normalized.
The fallback tag is just for refers. The digest algorithm is for everybody implementing image specs. So they're two independent things that can go out of sync with each other.
Okay.
But because the refers fallback depends on whatever that algorithm is, we get some funny behavior in here.
Okay.
All right. We chat about that one enough. Let's jump over to the other one. Let's chat about Blake 3.
I think I can rock the rest of it now. Thanks.
Yeah. I'll noodle on that one a bit. If anybody has thoughts, feel free to drop them in the PR. Maybe the easy thing for the fallback tag is just to say limit the digest algorithm length to X. And that would be an extra limitation over there. And if people do crazy stuff, we're not stopping them from doing crazy stuff. All right. Over on the Blake 3 discussion, this one, Tianon, I saw you chiming in on that one, and so I figured this would be a good chance to chat about it. We've got the Go Digest group has a really old PR saying, what do we call this thing? Let's go ahead and standardize it.
But they also have a merged PR that already decided what to call this thing, and it's a pretty unobjectionable name. I was looking at this again last night and was like, what are we waiting for?
What are we waiting for on the image spec side? Somebody wants to make the PR.
Yeah, so that's the conclusion I came to as well last night. And so I made a comment to that effect of like, I think this has support. We just need someone to do the work.
I have no idea why Rom hadn't opened the PR yet.
Yeah, the devil's in the details of exactly what the language is going to say, but like the high level, should we do this thing? Yes, we should do this thing.
My biggest reason for not doing it myself is I don't have an implementation that uses it. And so I can't prove out anything I'm saying to put in the spec. I like having an implementation before I throw it in the spec. That was the direction I was going to go in this discussion. Is I feel comfortable telling the Go Digest team, you can standardize something before the spec does it. They already have, but even going forward, they can put something over there in advance of the spec, and then we still be our traditional trailing spec that we always are. And we're just now trailing the Go Digest implementation. But either way, they've led over there. They've got a Blake 3. Someone needs to put in the spec. Rob, we're all looking at you.
I heard my name. What am I supposed to do?
There is no PR yet to add Blake 3 to image spec. We don't know why you haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. I'll get on it right away.
Just adding it as a registered algorithm. I would follow the same verbiage and image spec that is there today. This is over in the descriptor file. I'm gonna get this up and find that code so I can point people over to it. So we've got text. I thought I said I was, there it is. Okay. That line. Good link. Okay. So the direction I'm thinking is we got the verbiage over there right now for SHA-5 12. It points over to an RFC. Documents, gives a little description of some of the reasons for it and whatnot. Gives the name that was registered. Says how it's used. The very important text there is line 159 that says implementations may, and the may is capital, implement this algorithm. We're not saying implementations must support it. We're just registering it and saying, this is here. If you see the string, this is the algorithm associated with it. If you want to support it, great. If you don't, that's the end user's problem.
Okay, yeah. So I think Tiernan also made a comment, right? So Blake 3 stands for Blake 3 256, and we are going to stick with it.
That's what they've got in the Go digest right now. And so I would not
Touch
do
it.
anything
Okay.
differently in what they've already been testing.
Got it. Okay.
I'm guessing, based on the name here, that hang on, going back, W. King.
Just invited
You join
Trevor.
us.
I realize we missed the topic you discussed, but yeah, Trevor opened that PR. He's from
Yeah.
that as well. Trevor, you want to introduce
Yeah, we were
yourself?
chatting about it for a bit. I think the path I finally came to at the end, I was debating, do we want to put some restrictions inside of image spec? I'm leaning toward right now saying, let's make the refers fallback tag truncate the digest algorithm to a certain length. And so we're truncating the hash, we're truncating the algorithm. Between the two, we know that you can't have a sum of both of them that is greater than 128. And so, if we truncate the digest algorithm to 32 characters, that covers all registered algorithms today and hopefully anything people throw at us in the future. And if someone does something crazy in the future, they're going to get truncated in this one case. I'm hesitant.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was saying I don't really care what the algorithm is. I feel like the current spec is not clear on what the algorithm is, and I am pushing for clarity on whatever people want the algorithm to be. So if it's easier to close my pull request, have somebody who's more opinionated on what the algorithm is open a pull request, that's fine with me too.
Now, the part that you missed in the very beginning was me saying that you're finding holes in this stuff that I never even considered. And so you're raising very good issues that hopefully no one ever runs into, but it's good to at least cut these off in the spec before anybody does try to do something crazy. Because right now the registered algorithms don't have this problem. And so the SHA-5 12, SHA-256, the only two registered algorithms, they don't have any problem with this. They don't have any funny characters. They're not too long. So I think
But the 512 is too long for the tag, unless you truncate the digest, the hashed, whatever component part.
So right now the assumption is you truncate, and we just didn't say truncate in there like we should have said. So that part needs to be clarified. But I think you raised a bigger issue, which was that the digest algorithm itself can be unlimited length, can have all kinds of other characters in it. So that was a very valid issue I hadn't considered.
But also the image spec, the EBNF that they're using doesn't allow you to express character limits. I don't know how enthusiastic image spec folks are about adding, but whatever, you can bolt it on at the the distribution spec level. Say, we don't care what image spec does. We're just going to truncate both sides of this at this whatever length you want. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm in favor of truncating each of them individually because I want to have at least a certain number of hex bytes there on the end from the hash. I don't want that to get blown out by trying to do some kind of joint truncation, and maybe someone throws a very long algorithm that gives you only 5 bytes of hash at the end.
Right. Well, I mean, whatever. It's all going to end up in some giant, like there's going to be some collapsing risk, and the folks consuming it get to iterate over the things that they get back and see if this is actually about the digest that they were curious about. I mean, it makes sense. I think that truncating the digest for the digest algorithm separately, and then you don't have to worry about truncating the overall thing. So it'd be like 63 characters and then the dash separating them, and then 64 characters for the encoded part.
I'd honestly go even shorter. I'd say for the digest algorithm, just make it 32.
Okay, that's fine.
And get 2 nice even, power 2 numbers in there. Plenty of buffer at the end in case someone does something weird at the end that they want to add on in the future.
All right, works for me. I can re-roll to do that.
I see Sajay asking the question, who is facing this problem today? Hopefully nobody. Is that accurate from your side, or you?
Yes. I'm very curious as to what client or registry is actually hitting this problem. Because I mean, the point is we've like, I remember Vincent talking about this, that distribution and OCI spec is considered a trailing spec. So unless there is somebody who's implemented it and actually facing a problem in the real world, what's the point of doing this? And given that like this was meant only for the referrer scope, adding more clarity kind of gives the tag schema usage more validity. Where is that the direction we want to go?
I mean, for me, the image spec allows SHA-512 since it was born. And so distribution spec should be able to distribute SHA-512 because you can make it.
Yeah, I see that. But the point is, if we have, like, I think Brandon made a question here, which is a registry that is unlikely to support a 512. I mean, if it's already supporting 512, then why isn't it supporting the 1.2 referrer spec also? When the tag schema was written, it was a placeholder for clients to move over to referrers, right? So honestly, I'm hoping that we don't actually expand on the old tag schema if possible. But that's just my 2 cents, and I'm not a maintainer on distribution. So could we make sure that we lock it down in such a way that we don't care about the tag schema for a while this transition happens? And or is it something that we really want to clarify because somebody is facing a problem in some way? I think Tianan put a statement as to this might be applicable for a specific client or specific scenario like FIPS related. So where is this coming from is what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I was looking through the distribution spec and maybe I'm just missing it, but I don't see wording that, like, it's not clear to me how severable the various endpoints are. If there was a hypothetical registry that supported SHA-512, like blob push, say, but did not support the referrers API, would they be distribution spec compatible or not? I don't know if there's like wording that says like, if I hit the referrers tag endpoint and you 404 me, are you not compliant with distribution spec 1.1? Or are you compliant, but you happen to choose not to support the referrers? Like it was not clear to me, but I agree that like you could have a world where nobody ever does fallback tags for SHA-512 or other, like anything that's not SHA-256. Again, I feel like the point of the spec is to try to you spread clarity throughout implementers. And if the goal is to restrict refers tag to SHA-256, I feel like that's something that you could explicitly say in the spec to add that clarity.
But I think we
Right,
got
because right now we call out that 256 and 512 is a portion of the algorithm post section, right?
so SHA-256 512 are the both are two registry algorithms. I think there are three things happening here. One is that we're trying to support SHA-512, and so we're trying to add registries to support that. There are places today where it is not supported in the spec, even though we say here's how you do a SHA-512 hash. Clients cannot push SHA-512 encoded content to registries today if they want to push by tag. It's just
Right, but you can do blobs without doing tags. Like
But
manifests are
you
really
can't-
basically
but
garbage.
you can't
as
do a
far as-
refer. You can't do a refer to a blob. A refer only goes to a manifest. So
right.
you could
Well, I mean,
push.
refer is not like is that actually true, or is it refer
Yes.
to a digest and you don't like if you push a refer to for a digest that doesn't exist as a tag, is the registry forbidden from accepting that?
It's not that it has to have a tag, but it has to have the manifest should exist somewhere, because the subject field inside that manifest is where that digest comes from. And so
that seems,
They-
I don't know. I'll go through the spec again.
they can be pushed out of order, but the point here is that that subject field is pointing to a manifest, and so that digest should always reference a manifest, not a blob. So that's the quick and easy way to think about it right now, is that, okay, we're always pointing to a manifest, and it's not possible to push a manifest by tag to a different digest. And so that's why we get a little bit out of sync thinking there of, registries could do this, but they really can't today. We don't have the spec defining how that works. And so I think that might be a little bit of where Sajay's saying, is anybody really facing this problem today? Hopefully not, but I can see where you're worried about seeing this come in the future. And so we've got the SHA-512 progress hopefully coming down the pipeline. We got people that should hopefully be just adding the refers API, and that just solves all this. This whole issue goes away when they add the refers API. But there's the third issue that I think you kind of pulled the thread on just because of what you're looking at. And so actually, let me complete the first 2 points there. Between those first two, if you have a SHA-512 that on the registry doesn't have the refers, we just need to update the text to say we're truncating. We said it as a limit of, but we just need to say truncate instead of a limit of, and that way it's more clear. So that, I think nobody's disputing that we can clarify that wording, and everybody's kind of happy with that. But there's a third thing that you started pulling on, the little string you started pulling on, which was that, oh, by the way, the digest algorithm can be arbitrary length, or, a more broad character set in there. That was opening up all kinds of issues. And I think that's where we started saying, oh, wait, more stuff we might need to think about. And that might be where Sajay is really pushing back on. Is that accurate, Sajay?
Yeah, and I think it would be good to actually see a good 512 implementation, because we don't even have a conformance test for that. So all these are edge cases that we could never validate, right?
I add the SHA-512 to Ola Reg, and I added the PR that's in draft mode to Reg client just because it would not break anything if I have to change it in the future, since nobody's really using this stuff right now. So we had
Right.
something to look at. So there is an implementation that you can look at. You can convert an image from 256 to 512, pushes it by tag. Clients can pull it down by tag or digest, and they see the different long header in there. And clients break all over the place when they do this stuff today.
I've got to drop and take the kids to school. I'll pick it back
Yeah.
up in the pull requests. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you for joining. So yeah, I've got something out there today, Sajay, but I don't think anybody's really using it more than just proof of concepts right now. But also, Ola Reg supports the refers API, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm worried I didn't answer the question completely. Was that a laugh or a...
No, I'm just reading Ram Kumar's comment.
Okay. All right. So refers covered twice. I think we got that one covered pretty good. Blake 3 covered pretty well, hopefully. Only other stuff I threw out there was just kind of a little heads up on the ecosystem. So we've got a fair bit of time if people want to throw other stuff on the agenda or keep chatting about some of the other stuff we've already been chatting about for longer. But over on the ecosystem, Docker is adding support for mounting images as volumes. So all the stuff that's been going on that kept mount the LLM models, the data sets and everything for there. That's going on in Kubernetes, and that happened inside of Containerd. I think Moby is making some effort to start adding that upstream into Docker itself, probably to leverage what Containerd is already doing. And Podman has direct support for OCI artifacts that's out there. I think it's over in a beta release. But all the stuff that's going on in Aurus today, that people are pushing those artifacts, they have got some support directly in Podman. So just thought I'd bring up some interesting stuff happening in the ecosystem today. That might be.
Yeah, so I think Podman support will go out in 5.4, which should be next week. So I just want to say that the team is still working on how volume mount will work, which is the problem that we all want to solve together. So this is the first basic support, and folks are encouraged to like try out and give feedback on the current support, and it's not final. Yeah.
So I know Cryo did the volume mount for images early on. Did Podman do the volume mount for images and now you're adding artifacts, or are you looking to mount
This
images
is
too?
so I think Podman already had a way to mount an image, and then you can like in a directory, and then you can technically mount it in. So this is like directly adding support for artifacts.
Got it.
And we are using this as the playground, and what we do here will eventually inform the implementation in Cryo, because we'll end up using the same library. But the critical piece of how this gets mounted and shows up in a container is still being worked on.
I feel like this is a topic that Mike likes a lot, and I'm always interested in hearing how people are thinking about solving it too, because it's not non-trivial to solve.
I think one idea that we had internally was like, at least we're gonna try and gather real artifacts that people are using today, and we have a bunch of examples. And then we have maybe some algorithm that tries to manifest those artifacts into volumes. When we come here, maybe like folks on this call can gather more examples and then see if we can find some way to solve the 95% case without having to worry about the artifact type. But it's possible we discover that there's no such implementation, then we'll have to fall back on a plugin system where we have to care about the artifact type. But my hope is that we can avoid that if possible.
I think the very first example I saw was someone that saw this feature exist and they were working on Helm charts. And so they tried to mount a Helm chart inside of an image and immediately failed because that wasn't a container image.
Right. Yeah, because I think the KEP started with trying to solve the artifacts use case as well, and it was too much, right? And then we quickly backtracked and realized, okay, just shoving into images is simple for now, and Containerd and Cryo can handle that already, while we figure out what to do with artifacts. And this is, I think, the beginning of attacking that problem. Yeah.
There are multiple stages of complexity you're going to get into. There's a super simple, okay, let me start passing an LLM model that is a single layer, one file that's just a binary, mount this binary layer as a file into my container image on this path. Pretty simple for a lot of people. The stuff you have to worry about now is ownership permissions, any other file system settings that Tara was giving you out of the box that you now need to recreate somehow. The next level of complexity is now I want to add multiple layers. Maybe I also want to pull in the config, not a layer, but the config blob as well. And so they've got other stuff inside that image they want to start pulling in. Gets a little bit more complicated if you have multiple layers that all look the same. Can they pick and choose one layer out of the list that they want to mount?
Yeah, exactly. Like folks may put models of different sizes or quantizations in the same manifest list, and then you want to pick only one of them depending on what GPU or what resources you have. Then I think if you look at Hugging Face, I think which is a common distribution way, it typically divides a big model into multiple safe tensor files. Like, do they go into separate layers, and how do we combine them? Those are the kind of things we have to worry about as we work through this.
And so now before Mike jumps in, because I saw him come off mute here, and I know he's going to go down this path, so I'm just going to cut him right off. So now you've got an artifact's got multiple layers and maybe the config and stuff like that. The third level of complexity here is we got the referrers API where you can say, here's my image. Let me pull down the refer of this artifact type and mount this into my image. You may have multiple matches to that, multiple artifacts that match that same media type. So now you got multiple artifacts with multiple layers, multiple configs, all trying to be mounted as a volume.
Yeah.
Did I jump the gun on you, Mike?
Anybody's talking about hitting the refers API, but you're right. That's also something that we need to take care of. And then I think the answer would be obviously, for that set of the same rules would apply. However, we decide we're going to do this mounted of a single artifact.
Did I steal your thunder, Mike?
No, you did not. No. The only thing I would add that we haven't discussed is the processing of the artifacts. It may also be something that's applied. We have a thing called the NRI plugin that gives us the opportunity to process some of these, to be able to affect an annotation, for example. Try to simplify the model rather than pulling, hundreds of artifacts. There may be a better way to do some certain activities, right? Without having to mount them inside a container and do the processing inside the container. That may not be the best answer. I don't know. I think really all I wanted to bring up was, now we had talked about maybe putting together some kind of a work group session, at least at the Kubernetes level, to specify an API and bring that down as a set of requirements in the CRI for mounting these artifact volumes.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty flexible in where we meet. I'm okay if we can all just show up on this call. Like I'm just wary of creating yet another work group, and I know folks have limited.
Well, I mean,
time.
I don't mean a long work. I meant a meeting.
Yeah. And I think like we have
collecting the, yeah. I mean, we could probably do an ad hoc thing and KubeCon EU, but that's a bit out, and I'm getting tons of people asking me this question, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I'm pretty flexible in where we want to have the discussions, but definitely interested in moving forward and making some progress on it this year. So I think like my initial gut was like, this is just too complicated, shove everything in an image and let the consumer worry about it, right? I am the one consuming my model. I know where I put things in the image, but with the image, we have the downside where you first pull the tar and then you unzip it. So you're using twice the disk space. If you are not doing any compression and directly pulling an artifact, you can avoid using twice the disk space, and that will become critical if you have a 100 gigabit LLM model and limited disk space, right? You may not even be able to pull unless you have twice the space for the artifact size.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we could do the referrers on a label for now, to get started, or a pod annotation, and then let that pass down through the create, and then have an NRI plugin attach the additional volumes into the spec, into the pod request.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, if it's purely plugin based, that works as well. We just recommend that, okay, this is where you put a spec like CDI or NRI that will help the runtime interpret how it should be unmounted, but then that also exposes us to vulnerabilities, like, oh, someone is trying to get the runtime to mount something outside of the volume and fun stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
How can we do this without, doing 100 caps? You know?
Right. Yeah.
In my own refers querying code, I've got filtering by artifact type, which I always back up on the client side. Even if the server supports the filter, I still refilter that on the client side just in case, just because it's possible the server doesn't support that. I then support filtering on annotation. And so you can say, make sure these annotations are set to these values. And so you can look to that list and find the ones that's got your annotation. Maybe you're pulling a signature and you're looking for the key fingerprint or something like that in there. Who knows what details you're looking for. And then the third thing is I allow you to sort it, and I need to probably go through and tweak that sorting code a little bit to be like Simber and other stuff in there. But the thing I'm looking at initially was people will put the creation timestamp in there, and as long as it's in the RFC format, year, month, day, you can sort that and then pull out the most recent push of that artifact. If you've got multiple entries in there, you just get the most recent one. So a few options there. If none of those come out with a unique artifact, then I start throwing up a warning and just saying, hey, I got multiple matches. I'm just giving you the first one from the list. Good luck.
Well, it's going to be an interesting discussion for now. And Brandon.
Yeah, for sure.
The good luck part may not fly so well with runtimes that would fly on some of my own code. So I understand the hesitation on that. You could easily have a registry that gives different clients back the same list in a different order. The refers API is not, we don't specify the order in there. Hence the reason everybody went with the simple option to start with. Mount the container image, problem done.
Yep.
Index.
Not even an index. Simple container image and done.
Yeah, it's just too much hassle. That's what we need to fix. Figure out how to make it less of a hassle.
Yeah, I mean,
Common patterns that we're going to support.
Yeah, the size issue, the disk size issue is the biggest thing. Otherwise, I think the simple one is great for smaller images.
I think it was Tina that pointed out a while back, but we're basically reinventing tar at this point, outside of tar. You're saying someone's going to give you an artifact that has arbitrary content in the layers. You're now reinventing how you move that into a file system. And so you're re-implementing tar somewhere.
Yeah, the logical end conclusion of this is that you are going to completely, at the end, recreate the entire tar header in JSON instead of binary.
Yeah.
But you're leaving out the packaging. We need jar files. Oh, that's hell. Never mind. Fun project. It's going to be a fun project.
I wasn't saying it as much ranting as more as just guidance of, hey, go look at the tar header and figure out all the fields you need to put over in the JSON.
And yeah, defining a JSON at the higher level for the purpose of being able to pass down content into the container is interesting as well.
Yeah, as Tianan said,
Oh, man.
it's reinventing tar, but making it.
Here's your manifest. Here's the API. Here's the manifest contents.
And
you tell me what you want to do.
Yeah, the worst thing is we let everyone invent their own tar format, and the container runtime deals with it.
Yeah. The end result is something that's significantly less compatible. And for what? It's not better. It's not demonstrably better in any way.
Right. Exactly.
I think the reason people are going through all the hoops is that they have reasons they really want to package and ship whatever their data is outside of a tar. They've got the format already in some kind of external spec that they're mirroring.
Yeah.
They're just packaging that, shipping it inside of a OCI artifact. And now they want to use it, saying, okay, great,
How
you've
much
already got
extra
it now.
work that file in a tar.
Yeah, if you're saying, great, you already had it, but now your artifact needs to be converted into a tar, that's like, well, I already have the spec that says how I'm supposed to ship it. I've got the media type and everything. So they're following that. They need this extra data in there.
Yep.
There's a bridge to be crossed there somehow, and there's debates on how to cross the bridge.
And then you get into the typing and you start having any type models. And yeah. Somebody was asking me all these questions. I was having an interesting conversation over on some Slack, I think in Containerd, but yeah, I think we need to have a group get together.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm not sure like who will be the right representative from the Docker side. If you have folks you're working with, maybe they should be invited there too.
Yeah,
I'll get the cryo and the Podman folks. And
I saw the CPU guy was
yeah, if he's interested. Yeah.
Justin also. There were a lot of people on the links to those PRs. So I would say anybody that's willing to do work in this space would probably be excited and interested. But yeah, you're right. We can certainly we can ask Derek to go do a whip round, or Tina to do a whip round and see who's interested. Now that Derek's back with Docker again. But yeah.
Yeah, that one you just linked in on, that came up before. They were trying to say that was the one where they were coming up and saying, we're going to do an OCI artifact that's also an OCI image. And I jumped in on that one saying, hey, these two things aren't compatible. An OCR artifact is not an image because the strict definition of artifact is that you don't have the image media types.
They might have just meant the manifest type or something.
No, they really wanted to have an artifact, but then they realized that the spec required them to pass an image, and so they just called their artifact an image, or their image an artifact.
Their layers are tar based now. They're not reinventing tar in JSON metadata. So I'm going to chalk this up as a win.
So the reason they're tar based, I suspect, is that they're trying to do this in a way that they can implement it into a volume mount. The entire purpose of this group over here is that they're making it so they can do it as a volume mount. But the initial pass looking at them, I chimed in on a PR saying, I don't know if this entire group is even needed because you can do a volume mount right now and you don't need a spec. We've got the OCI image spec. That's what you use. And so they came back and said, no, we wanted to find something. So I think they are going through doing this so they can define something. But given that they've made a tar,
They had extra fields, right? It wasn't just the image; it was image plus additional fields. Is that the problem?
I think they made an OCI image and they probably added an artifact type in there or something like that to say, look, we're not really an image, we're an artifact type. Although all of our the config media type and everything else says I'm an OCI image, all the layer media types. So I think they're doing this so that they can still say that we're not packaging as an OCI image, we're making an artifact, we're being different, even though the entire purpose is they want to mount as a volume. So what I'm curious of is if Cryo today, if it saw something like this that was being packaged with this different media type, would work.
I don't think it will. I don't think we have the code for that yet.
Yeah.
CNI model. Yep.
But Sasha is active, so I'll check with him on what he's involved in that group, and he's primarily doing the work on Cryo side.
So we should convince them to use the standard OCI image layer media types again and add artifact type for their extra metadata. Just to maximize how uncomfortable it makes Brandon.
My thing is, we've already got a spec that tells them how to mount this stuff. They don't have to reinvent anything. It's just not an artifact. It's an OCI image.
An image
think-
pretending to be, and then it works with 1.0 as well, right?
I think people get twitchy when you say you're not packaging an artifact. They're like, but I want to package an artifact. Why? Because I want to manage the volume. You need an image. we get a circular discussion. They really want that artifact name in there. That's like the gold standard they're going for, even though they don't need it or they don't actually want it.
It's the typing. It's the idea of you're creating your own data structure, right?
We put a new button out there. They have to push the button. They can't not push the button. Every person that's ever worked in a museum, there's always a button on the wall that kids are trying to press.
I guess that's something we can take to this mini work group, right? Or short-term group, is that perhaps we need to do some filtering on when the pod spec says this is an artifact, we will verify the 1.1 typing is available, so that we don't have to, or it's an image and don't do that. Yeah. But that's something we've got to come up to, right? That are we gonna restrict to 1.1, or are we gonna do the 1.0 variants?
I mean, images stay 1.0, you've already got those, so it's not restrict to 1.1. It's do you add support for 1.1?
Right. But if you're on 1.0, you can't have these other variants. I'm just saying, it's like, we're not going to parse the annotations necessarily, right? If you're using the Docker pattern in 1.0 for artifacts, we're not going to do that. We're not. However, if we agree to have an NRI plugin kind of model, yeah, then they could evaluate, parse it themselves, or do some set of custom plugins that do the parsing, and then pass that after. Basically, just modify the volume for us for the mount, and doing or split it out into a set of with different paths, and then that should be clean enough for us. I don't know. I like plugging extensions for artifacts. For some reason, that just it makes sense to me, because I don't have to own the code, and it can be common across the runtimes.
My push that I've been doing this whole time is trying not to push each artifact code into the runtime, because that's going to get really complicated really quick.
Yeah, really quick.
But I don't know in the runtimes. I don't have the final say over there. That's just my thought process, knowing how many artifacts are going to be, which is unlimited.
Yeah.
All righty, we're at the top of the hour. My hardly anything on the agenda turned into a full hour again. Thanks for playing for another week, and we'll be back next Thursday.
Cheers.
Thanks, folks.
Cheers all.
Thanks all.